we're going to talk about why AI can cripple you and why AI probably, and I'm willing to put some money on this, is going to be the downfall of your ability to be an entrepreneur, a leader, and a thinker. Today, I got Marty in the house, the integrator extraordinaire, and we're going to talk through what fascinating evidence is showing up in this new landscape of AI. There's been a report that's been released from MIT related to AI and how the utility of it is actually killing and stifling people like you, people who are capable, who are ambitious, and who are driven, but don't understand the shadow of this tool. And what I want you to do for a moment, wherever you are, wherever you're tuning in, is I want you to really, for a moment, take the devil's advocate seat with us and try to play along as we understand what's going on with AI, what science is suggesting, and why, if you're having this resistance to AI and you're having this conversation maybe with your team or with like it's happening everywhere. Wherever you're having it, there's a bit of resistance to it, and we're going to prove to you today why that resistance is really healthy and why it might be good to check what's really going on and make sure that you're using this tool the right way. Marty, I highly recommend you go in. His conversation about using AI to really integrate and provide language to something that might be unspoken in your life, fantastic. But today, we get to talk about whoa, too far. Like, we've gone too far down this AI rabbit hole. I'm excited that you're here. What's up, man?
Oh, it's summer here in Arizona.
Live crazy.
It's surprisingly cool, quote unquote, cool this weekend. It was under 100 today.
Yeah, it's been beautiful. Under 100. I will say, compared to an East Coast 100, I'd take an Arizona 100 over an East Coast 100 any day of the week.
Yeah, 100 is not bad here.
Yeah. I would say the ratio that people need to understand, if you're from the East Coast, maybe even the West Coast, like California, where there's a lot of humidity, Texas is like that, Louisiana is like that, Florida is like that. You got to take Arizona at a 16-degree differential. So if it's 100 here, it's basically the same as 84 where you're from.
That's a good ratio.
See, yeah, I've thought about this for a long time.
I'm just thinking, because I went out for a walk this morning. You know what it was like. It was in the 80s, which is quote unquote cool. But I'm like, oh, there's actually a breeze today, and the breeze is burning your skin.
Yeah, convection oven. But I think a 16-degree differential is how, when it's 116, it feels like 100, which is exactly what it feels like in the East Coast. If it's 100, you're like, no, I'm out. I'm staying in the house. I'm sweeping the floors. I don't care.
Can AI help us solve the weather?
Can AI fix the floors? I don't know. But we got to talk, dude. We got to talk about this thing. The study came out recently, right? The study that
MIT.
From MIT, they published a study, and look, all jokes aside about the weather and these things, this is a pretty substantiated study. It not only depicts a very bleak future, but I think it gives us entrepreneurs a really good tailwind, some wind behind the sails to start to think about what's the role of AI in business, with your relationships, with your introspection, and kind of this 16-degree differential. We actually need a differential right now. People are 100 degrees into AI, and we need them at 84, right? You don't stop using it. Just use it a little different. And if it's plugged in right now, and if you're tuned in right now, we're going to make an argument today that basically says, whoa, cowboy, slow your roll. You're a little bit too dependent right now. This is exciting. It's an edge, but I don't think a lot of people are talking about the shadow side.
Yeah, and I would say probably a lot of people in our sphere underutilize it anyway. They probably use it for email, stuff like that. Yeah, if you're paying for it, you're wasting your money anyway. If if that's all it's doing. You're underutilizing. I do think it has to be. People might not agree, but I think it has to be treated like a relationship in some sense, just because of the nature of what it does and how you have to engage it that way.
So you're saying don't be a stage 5 clinger. Like don't go overboard in this relationship.
I think if if you could take a step back, it probably can teach you something about your relationships as to how you use it.
Yeah. Well,
Do you want to like talk how MIT kind of ran the study?
so before we get to the study, like I really think it's important that you and I talk a little bit about what we're using AI for, because if we're going to model like, hey, there's a different way, it's important. How about this? Let's just go back and forth real fast and let listeners know, like, what are you using it for on a day-to-day basis? And when I say for, I'd actually be more curious to know, how are you interacting with it than like the content itself, right? Like the way that you are leveraging it without the content specifically to act as a reference for the like agenda that you have with AI. So let's just let's bat it back and forth and see what comes up, because I think people are using it like like Google, and that's not what it's for. So let's go down that path first.
You want to know what I use it for? Uh, I think I have two prongs really. I do use it within the business in terms of writing. This this podcast will eventually run through AI as well, to give feedback and points. I also use it for, and this is specifically us, of what's my vision for this world that I live in, and what's the impact that I want to leave on this world. So for me, it's essentially those two prongs, but it also helps with coming up with outlines. If I have meetings to go to, I can put everything in there and it'll help me sort it out and pull things together. So that's a lot of what I use it for.
Yeah, let's do a couple of volleys of this. A very simple one that I use it for, that feels like a good skeleton for someone to follow. When we have client work that involves a lot of vision and a lot of complexity, and want to communicate what that looks like and want to communicate the roadblocks, I take all the information from clients, uh, transcripts, etc., writing exercises that we have them do, it's all that, and I pop it into a prompt and ask for feedback on what I'm advising them to do, and ways that I could improve the language to match what they've already written. So in that sense, I'm taking all of the information from our interactions and their own words and my advice, and saying, how do I synthesize this better, right? But I'm not saying like, what would you advise? I don't want your advice. I want my advice from the lens of, how do I communicate this better?
Correct. Yeah, someone had described it to me along those lines, where if you tell me something, there's I it will automatically be filtered by me, because I'm going to hear it through my own lens, how I know you, and so nothing is ever really purely mirrored back to us. Typically, with people, it's how they think they hear us when we speak. AI will just tell you back what it says, because that's all it knows. So you're essentially using it in that way.
All right, let's do one more volley. What else do you use it for?
I just pull mine up to see what else my topics are. I've done so many like legal agreements that we use with
Hey, yeah, that's a great one, man. Yeah, how do we synthesize a construct into a legal format?
because I'm not a lawyer, but you can ask, if you don't know, you could ask it to be a lawyer in that sense, and it will help come up with the language.
That's great. Here's the last one before we go into this study. Uh, before we get on podcast, so I disclaimer for everybody listening, I am so bad at research. Marty, you know this, but I am so bad at research. My like bad at research works like this. I Google something, I click on the first link, and I'm like, nah, that didn't answer it. And then I'm just like, I'm done.
Okay, I got it. And move on.
Right. I'm just, it has to be fast. So here's what AI helps do. The reason I don't like research is because research doesn't help me fill in a key and critical gap. We did a podcast on Lego, and that release was based on two distinct functions. One was really important research. When was the company founded? Why was it founded? What did they struggle with? Where were their hiccups and hangups in their leadership board? And this is the point that I want to make. So how does the research bridge? So the prompt helped me. I took the story that I wanted to tell and said, hey, can you find data about Lego? And here were all the different details I was looking for. And then help me connect that to the overarching point that I want to make. I'm going to find my own story along the way, but can you help me bridge the gap? And that was really good too. And I think for other people, like I love the legal one. I think that's a great crunchy tip. If you're in a position where you have to communicate something through the lens of research, you can get the cliff notes from research and the bridge. And then if you're conversationally fluent, you can really accelerate. I think that's another good tool.
I do want to make one other point because this one comes up often as well. There's no like miracle prompt, right? You eventually you probably have to prompt things a number of times before you get start to fill the gaps in what you were intentionally looking for. But I know that comes up often. People think there's like this one miracle prompt you put in and it's going to give you everything, and that's just not true.
Yeah. There's like a thing on Facebook that proliferated around that was like, all right, act like a 4000x version of yourself, and then to like compute my future and all of the possible circumstances of my life and tell me what I'm missing. And like, okay, that's fine. But I think to your point, what we're talking about is an interactivity that you've got to steer. And that's a great segue, Marty, into the problem. Because the problem is not, at least at a high level, the problem is not the prompt. Like you got to get your prompts right. You got to talk to it. You got to interact. You got to do all that shit. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that as we segue into this conversation about this study, what we're basically seeing evidentially is that if you are using AI to short circuit creativity, thinking, higher level executive function, brain activity of neural networks that you need to be able to perform at a high level, you are so incredibly fucked for the rest of your life because your brain is about to shut down completely.
You're also lazy. Well, I'll just call it you're lazy if that's what
nicer than I did, but
But that's essentially what the study says. You're making your.
Tell us about the study. Like the study was done recently.
Yeah, by MIT. I believe it was all college students. They broke them into 3 categories. It was people that only used ChatGPT. That's the AI that they were using, and they do say that it was ChatGPT. There was a group that was allowed to use search engines like Google, and then there was a group that could only use their brain. And they were given questions that you would get on SATs.
Which I probably would fail that test, regardless of what method they gave me.
It's foreign to me because that portion of SAT did not exist in my time. But they were giving whatever those questions are. I don't even know what they are. They were given those questions. They had to use that either ChatGPT's
tool was
correct.
Then what?
Then I forget how many times they had done that, and then they switched them up. So the people who were just using their brains were asked to use ChatGPT and ChatGPT for the brain people, which is where they began to notice the difference in brain patterns. That the brain person always did much better than the ChatGPT person. The ChatGPT person had a hard time adjusting back to just using their brain to answer the question, because what they found was the more they asked them to do the study, they got lazier and lazy. The AI people got lazier and lazier. They just started to copy and paste. They didn't even know what the answer was to the question that they were doing. They were just copying it and putting it on the paper. So it was. I was thinking as you were speaking that there's almost like a transactional nature to it. Give me what I want, and I move on.
Yeah, truth.
And so they released the study. And they say they released the study because they thought it was too important to go through a peer review before it was released. I don't know if that's the exact reason why they did it. I think the peer review probably would have watered it down somewhat. So they wanted to put that data out there right out of the gate.
I doubt this test would pass in like a science journal, right? And in the way you and I are going to describe this study is very clear. You and I should never be scientists. We're like, yeah, this group of persons did this thing. Regardless of whether you are esoteric or informative oriented, we need science. We need things to like test and structure these kinds of environments to learn something. And whether or not it passes in the science journal or whether or not it gets peer reviewed and said, hey, this is a legitimate scientific study that really indicates a big problem, whether there was a focus group or not, whether there was different segmentations of this kind of assessment, none of that really matters to me. I think we're learning something very important here. And if you're given these three subsets and then there's some sort of inversion and you can see brain activity from EEG scans, it's worth paying attention to. If nothing else, I hope it just alerts people to do a little bit more digging, right? To really think critically. And I hope it invites more studies and more inquisition about this. But let's talk about a couple things, because we know this study now is out. We know it's causing waves. It's been in conversations between not just you and I, but also in our field. People are talking about it.
On Instagram that you and I went back on, which had like ominous music playing on the background of
it. Yeah, it's like that. There's a lot of attention right now on this, and leaders are, I think, hesitant to adopt AI, but they know they have to. Some are overindulging, right, and going a little bit too hard. There's a wide arena of adoption going on with AI, and what I think this is really pointing to is that there are probably a few things that we need to be able to take away from an AI study that is maybe not the best scientific study, but a really good indicator of a coming scientific study. And what I'd like to do, Marty, is let's you and I break down three distinct points that someone needs to begin to think about before they get too far into this AI like purge. And if this study indicates anything from my perspective, as I read it and learn and understand it and hear you talk about it, it's basically that if you become the AI junkie, where like that's all you do, you just like AI out, you are headed for a world of disconnection. And our world functions on relationships, it functions on communication, and it functions on connection. And no matter what AI can do, connection is going to be a through line that either gets washed away and your business crumbles, or it gets strengthened and your business soars.
Part of the feedback they got was in talking to, I think they were also talking to professors or people that were teaching in the arena, because it's learning how to identify students that are strictly using GPT when they're in a classroom, writing for a classroom. And teachers, that they had recognized that teachers knew something was off when the person would hand it in, but couldn't quite put their finger on what was actually going on the paper, because it sounds fine, but there's something off on the tone of it.
Yeah. If I remember right, the study cited teachers or readers saying that it was like soulless. So I think probably first and foremost, we've got to say that if you are overusing AI, these like shortcuts that you think you have are actually stifling your ability to think and your ability to think creatively specifically. So what I'm seeing is that the test was actually looking at neural activity, not just the results. They were looking at neural activity. And the group that was using ChatGPT, their neural activity, their connectivity was the lowest. Like it was creating a lot, like it was doing the work, but there was something missing. And I find that to be sort of sad. Like we're going into this space where your brain is about to be less active, which means that A, you need to know how to use the tool, right? Like you got to figure that out. And B, if you are using the tool to scapegoat your own creativity, you're essentially atrophying your ability to be creative.
Yes. I would say creativity as well as critical thinking. And I think both are necessary. So I think it's actually both of those things at play.
Yeah. If you're a business owner, man, I really worry about how like it can shortcut it, right? Look, when the shortcut's appropriate, like shortcut it. I'm okay with that. Like I'm not gonna argue like I don't do that. As you elevate as an entrepreneur, like shortcut it. But what I am concerned about is this sounds a bit brash and harsh, but like uh, a less seasoned entrepreneur trying to get in rooms or finding a way to get into the room or finding a way to get into the door or open an opportunity up that was essentially built by ChatGPT, and walking into the room and people finding out he's a snake, finding out he doesn't have the chops, finding out that he or she doesn't have the postulation and the experience to really be in that space, right? Because you can there's this whole thing of like fake it till you make it. And like, fine, I think we've probably all done that. But there is also this degree of like, if you're going to say that, if you're going to write that, if you're going to command that, you better be able to back it up. And I think we're going into a world where you can skip that step.
Where there's then the disconnect is within you. Yeah, and I think it's a time, not even just as entrepreneurs. I think as a world, as a society, we need creativity and we need critical thinking. We just do at this point.
Big time. Leadership. Like you can't AI your way into leadership, right? You can't be like, hey, AI, I've been thinking, you know, Michael's been having a really hard time this week. He's underperforming and I want to be sympathetic and I'd like you to give me 3 things to do with him. Like you can make that prompt, but that doesn't give you the ability to lead him. That doesn't give you the ability to empathize, communicate, and have emotional intelligence to drive a really meaningful connection through that.
Or does it mean he could just embody that when you just because AI says it doesn't mean I could just embody it.
Right. Yeah. I'm more and more called to this idea that what's going to be more and more valuable is this creative edge, this ability to see between the lines. You know, I've seen all these prompts where, and we have an AI. So like, I suppose this is, an interesting paradox, but the intention of our AI was to bridge this development gap. But I've seen a lot of AIs that articulate like, we can give you your vision. I would never want AI to tell me my vision. I want it to help me articulate it and to communicate it. I do not want AI to ever tell me what I want.
But even if it gave you that vision, unless you have the whereabouts to then ask it follow-up questions about what am I missing? What are the holes? What are the gaps? It it's just not going to be the entirety of what your vision can be because you're not asking it the right questions.
Yeah. How do I make sure I stay true to myself and true to where I came from without, just surrendering to the capitalist agenda? Yeah. Yeah. I think all these things are tricky. So, okay. So if we know that AI stifles deep thinking and creativity, which is sort of like point number one. Let's talk about memory, because there was a big part of this study that was around like recall.
Where it was like 80 some percent couldn't remember the answer that they were giving for a specific question. I think I mentioned earlier that they just started cutting and paste, cut and paste, cut and paste. They weren't even reading what GPT was giving them. They were just cutting and pasting it. And so they could not recall what the answer to the question was.
I don't know that I have like a James Bond photographic memory. I don't know. I have pretty good memory for like things that I know matter, right? And as an entrepreneur, it's hard to tell when things matter and when they don't. I would ascribe that most entrepreneurs struggle with quote unquote memory. But the reason is not because they have memory like dysfunction. It's because there's a lot of information. You're making a lot of decisions all the time. You're trying to critically assess and evaluate a ton of options. And when you're not like, fuck, what's my best friend's birthday? You're like, well, shit, how do I keep that and also keep in real time the 10 people that I employ and their birthdays and all that, right? It's just like, how do you constantly shuffle your memory bank?
Part of something I read as I was reading about the study today was the belief is that the question of memory has more to do with the fact that whatever GPT is giving them isn't my thought. If I have to think the thought, there's a better chance of me holding on to that thought and recalling that thought. But if the computer is just giving me that thought, I could just let it go once I cut and paste it and move on.
So what I'm hearing is that through the lens of this study, memory retention, which is the baseline of like being strategic, right? Because if I'm not able to hold on to an idea, I can't hold a strategy either. Is all based on you having what sounds like an opinion, meaning that when you formulate an opinion and use ChatGPT to accelerate the communication or the validation of that opinion, and you solidify it, which allows you to be strategic because you're basing it on like, hey, my intuition, what I think, my experience, all these different inferences, you're now able to say, well, because of all these things and it being permanentalized, we can activate on this for 6 months, right? It's got a battery. But if I just go chat GPT and I skip this whole formulation process, there's no way for me to hold to it.
I think that the word you use is the word I was thinking as well. You short circuit the process.
It's fascinating. Like that is really an interesting concept. So here's what I hear when if I were to solidify that down to like one sentence, if you don't have an idea, you are susceptible to the nearest idea that fits. Which means, who is intelligent here? Me or this machine? And if the machine is an amalgamation of all these other inferences and inputs and questions and data and Reddit threads, am I any different? Like, am I actually intelligent?
But AI is information, and it's still a computer. It's still ones and zeros. It's still binary, and so a human is a whole lot more complex than just the information that I have that factors into your strategy or whatever I'm going to do. And it can't bring those pieces in unless I specifically tell them I'm feeling this way. This is that. It only knows what it knows.
Entrepreneurship is predicated on making decisions. Your baseline as an entrepreneur is, can you make better decisions than most people? And can you critically assess your decisions and then not make the same mistake twice? That's like the rule of entrepreneurship. Don't make the same mistake twice. You can make whatever mistakes you want, just don't make it twice. But if you can't remember what choice you made because you outsourced it, you're gonna make the same mistake twice, probably multiple times. And I think there's an ownership piece that's going to come into question of like, where did this idea come from?
It because, but also in another capacity, it can help to enlighten the choices that you need to make. It's still you that has to make the choice. AI can't make the choice for you.
Yeah, that in all this idea of like memory too, and not being able to recall what just happened. I think one of the fundamental flaws that's going to happen. I'm just putting this together, but I'm willing to bet, man, this sounds terrifying. That AI will be a very prolific scapegoat in leaders who are cowards, who made a tough choice or made a hard decision or evaluated something through AI, and AI was like, fire that person or cut that product or whatever. And instead of being like, this is what I know to be best. This is what I feel I can trust. And I know it's hard and I got to do this. They'll be like, nope, I don't know. AI told me. And they'll scapegoat all the responsibility and try to like shirk away from the difficulty of it.
Think back to how this started. As I said, if you could take a step back, it probably is a good reflection about how you relate to people as well. It's the same thing we do with humans. Well, they told me to do it. It's the blame game. So now we'll blame a machine.
It's not my fault I need to fire you. I asked AI and like, based on all your metrics, I got to fire you versus an actual connective conversation. Dude, I could see that writing on the wall right here. Like, man, somebody's going to be like, no, dude, like, I mean, my vision says I should do this and we got to break up. Like, what? You, what? How did you get to that conclusion? Oh, I didn't. My AI told me to.
And what I was told.
Right. Yeah. A real entrepreneur. What a fucking visionary you are. Okay. Well, let's go to point number 3. So we got this, like, you're killing creativity. You're killing your ability to think. That's number 1. Number 2, you're really not able to recall, nor can you hold on to strategy because you can't recall things, right? You can't hold an opinion, nor can you hold the formulation of an idea. So you can't be strategic. I think point number 3 that I see from the study is that if you use AI appropriately, you can really level somebody up or level your business up. But if you misuse it, the like far wing of that is that it leaves somebody handicapped. And we're entering a phase where a lot of people are going to end up handicapped, not empowered. So let's talk a little bit about that.
Well, there's 2 things. One, even in the study, there was the people that were able to use a search engine can bounce back much quicker than someone that was only using GPT, because they found that the search engine, if I'm Googling a topic, most people still use their brain to think about what it is that they're reading or researching rather than just telling the AI to tell me what I'm supposed to say. So there's a quicker bounce back if I'm just using search engine versus GPT. I was thinking though, as you were speaking, when we first started using AI, I had a hard time with it. And now I would say I was using it backwards, where I would have it write something, because I do a lot of writing. I'd have her write something, and then I would try to put it into my own words rather than putting it in my own words and then putting it into AI and say, all right, what's the language we use in our business that best suits our audience? So I think it's learning how to use it the proper way versus just misusing it.
So let's replace the word proper with empowering, just for the this particular.
They're using the way you had said. I felt crippled in that situation. Like I don't know what to do with this.
So if one lens is empowering and the other is handicapping, what I think we're learning is that
It eventually it became like an editor for me.
right, it's like a teammate, right? So if you use it empoweringly or to empower, then you've got a teammate. If you use it as a handicap, what you're essentially asking for is a replacement or a superior, or it's like the kid you cheat off in high school. You're like, that kid's definitely going to get an A, so I'm just going to write whatever he writes, and he writes like 4, and you're like,
I didn't cheat. I didn't cheat.
well, I was the one that people cheated off.
Oh, you were the brain.
What? But here's the thing. Like what I do there, I will never forget this. One of my friends copied my math answers. So in calculus class, I had a teacher named Ms. Freeman. She was awesome. And in my senior year, we had gotten so far ahead of curriculum that there were 4 kids in the class. And our 4 parents had to go to the school board to fight to have this class, because they were like, we ran out of math. You did all the math. You did all the math. So we got 4 kids in this class doing math. And when there's 4 kids in the class, you can't cheat. There's no way. She would put us in the corners of the room. Like, you can't cheat. But by that point, I already had a bit of a reputation for being good at math. And there was the kid, I'll never forget it, man. Jeff and I, we were good buddies. But he, through 11th grade, would certainly be like, hey, bro, like, what's the answer here? And you got to be somewhat slick about it. So you could turn your paper or whatever. But if I got the question wrong, he got the question wrong, right?
In the same way.
So you're trying to play this game of like, I mean, you can have my answer, but this goes back to the process. Even if I gave you the right answer, if the teacher was a good teacher, and Miss Freeman was, she'd be like, well, how'd you get it? And
sure, you're working, man. That's the one thing with math.
dude, she hated me. So here was my best party trick in high school. And this tells you a lot about just how much of a nerd I was and how uncool I was. She would try to trip me up and be like, you didn't show your work. You got the right answer, but you didn't show your work, so I'm not giving you credit. And she would call me out in the middle of class and be like, so I have a journal, it is actually back here, of art that I would draw during class. I was never taking notes on the subject. I was just drawing. And I can open this journal, and whatever I was drawing, I can tell you what we were learning in class that day. I can just look at it and be like, oh, I was drawing, I don't know, fucking Captain America. And I can be like, oh, we were learning how to rotate a line around an axis and measure the surface area of that line or that shape, that cone. Like, it's weird, right? That's weird. Like, there's nothing not weird about that. But she would try to trip me up. She'd be like, hey, come up to the board and show your work. And I'd be like, all right, fine. And she would get so mad because I would go up and I would do the whole thing. And I'm like, I can do it in my head. Why do I need to write it down? I can get there, right? But I could do all this stuff in my head. And she'd be like, but I want to see that you can do the work. And I'm like, well, no, that's not how life is. You get the fucking answer right. But I do think that, to her credit, ChatGPT allows you to skip the process, right? It allows you to do that. But you'll find out the truth if you test the answer, just like she did, right? She'd be like, come up to the board and show me how you got that answer. And I'd sit there and I'd be like, okay, 2 pi, and then the fucking reciprocal of these equations. Like, I can remember it now. And you rotate it around the axis, and like, this is how you get it. You do the reciprocal, you take all these information, and she'd be like, all right, well, shit, I was trying to call you out, and you're right. This sucks. But that's the same thing is going to happen with entrepreneurs, where you're going to bring this stuff up. And if you've been crippled because you haven't actually done your homework, and someone calls you out and is like, okay, if your market changes, I understand how you got your TAM. I understand how you got your total addressable market. I understand how you got your data. I get your pitch deck. I get the business prop. What happens when you don't get funding? What happens when market change? You're like, well, let me email you back. They're going to know that you've essentially used this tool as a dependent, and you're not the leader. AI is your leader. You want to see the journal? Bro, I'm not kidding. Hold on. This is from, so this piece of art is from 12th grade.
You just, if someone's just listening, it's an eagle and a dragon, maybe, from what I could see, or with a knife.
It's an infinity. I was trying to draw an infinity symbol with the eagle and the snake, and then the blade in between.
Well, snakes, dragon, they're all the same thing.
You watch Game of Thrones, it's fine. But I can remember what we were doing in class this day, and what I think is interesting. If we think of AI as this supplement, then we'll use a supplement a certain way. Like you and I have a phenomenal client partner in the functional medicine space that assigns supplements to us, and not once am I like, well, the supplement dictates my life. Right? I don't think like that. I take the supplement every morning. It's a pill. So it's an additive that is designed to augment what I want. But if you use AI as the superior lens of intelligence, man, something big's coming your way. Like a tsunami's coming your way. Here's what's interesting, right? What I've read is that the ability to like make prompts creates this like almost addictive nature. And the people that were using ChatGPT in that study showed like these spikes in engagement and this ability to like, okay, I'm in it. But then it just like crashed. So when they got out of ChatGPT, it was gone. And I think the danger is that if you continue that cycle for long enough, you don't have, like, your brain doesn't have a way to think anymore. It's out.
I do think it's important to note that the study was done all through typing. It was not using voice prompt. Everything had to be typed.
That's a good caveat.
Yeah, and they have questioned, would it be different if I'm using the voice over just typing everything in?
I think it would be. I believe that. I use the voice like 90% of the time, probably 90% of the time. So I'll pop it open and say like, hey, this is what's going on. Here's the context. Here's what I'm going through. Here's what I want you to help me with. And here's the intended outcome. And I'm not totally sure. So once you formulate your response, I want you to give me like a couple questions back to make sure I'm feeling it.
And then you have to listen. That's why they think there would be a change in how it functions, because I have to listen to what the response is rather than just cut and paste whatever it puts on the screen. I have to listen to that.
So pro tip, if you're going to use this tool, as soon as you're done talking, hit the mute button or you're going to lose everything. Like you're welcome.
Speaking from experience.
Yeah. I'm telling you, you're welcome. You can send me like send me a gift card to Dave & Buster's or something. But if you don't hit the mute button after you start talking, you're going to drop your pencil or your fork and it's going to ruin everything.
I just had it happen this past week.
Dude, I did it twice this week where I took 6 minutes to explain what I was doing, which was, again, very contextual and required a lot of cerebral level thinking. And I don't know, like the door opened and it was like, and then it's like, oh, what do you need? I'm like, oh, shit. So yeah, don't do that. Which also requires critical thinking.
Don't pause while you're speaking.
You have no room to pause. You say 9 times. It's the only time ums are valuable.
It's temperamental.
Yeah, it is quite a journey in a lot of ways. Well, look here. So this study says a couple things to us. In a way, it's pushing entrepreneurs more and more to use it as a tool, and the likelihood of an overcorrection is high. The likelihood of the delegation of a vision, delegation of leadership, the delegation of connection of human faculty is likely to go up because of this tool. And this might be your warning sign or your wake up call to change your utility of this device and start to think about the thinking apparatus of this tool before you start using the tool itself. And if you're not in a position to like think through what you're saying, wait, just wait. It's there all the time. Like you can wake up in the middle of the night and be like, hey, I just had a crazy dream. Can you help me process it? Here's what happened. That's very different than sitting there with your business and being like, all right, so I want to present to an investor and I want to make him say yes. And just tell me what I need to do to get a yes. It's very different. And I think we're entering a phase where the stake of critical thinking is about to go way up. The stake of connection is going to go way up. The stake of leadership is going to go way up. And there's now a little bit of evidence. Again, is it super scientific? I would say no. Will this end up in a journal somewhere? Probably not. I hope that it does catalyze.
Maybe not now, but it will at some point. It just will.
There's probably already a lot of studies. We just don't get the information until 180 days later. I hope it does catalyze people to question. Hope it catalyzes people to ask deeper what their intentions are. But we at least have some sense of data to say that if you're answering questions and you're using ChatGPT to do that, you're actually circumventing your neural growth. You are totally. You know what I think about first? Every time I pull up Instagram and I Google like Planet Fitness, I see somebody at the gym that's using equipment the wrong fucking way. Like there was a video of a guy using the lat pull down machine to be Spider-Man. Right? So he's hanging upside down. His feet are on the rope and he's trying to I don't know what he's trying to do. None of it makes any sense.
It wasn't you?
It wasn't me. No, it was a fraud. It was a fraudster. But he's upside. He's like pushing off of the lat pull down to go away from the bar, hung like Spider-Man. I'm like, okay, this guy is 100% the ChatGPT hacker, right? Like, it's a great visual of what the fuck are you doing, right? When you see that video, anybody that's been in the gym and has any level of experience at the gym would be like, yeah, that's not how you use that machine, right? And yet we're quick to laugh at that. And we're quick to be like, well, that's just an idiot at Planet Fitness. But we're not having the same honest assessment of AI. Like, hey, dude, that's not how we use this. And I think about this as a dad. I want to allow Emerson to understand how to be empowered by AI, but not to be dependent on that. That is not his way of the world, nor his way of thinking. He is not excused from critically assessing and developing his own opinion.
It'll be one more thing to get addicted to.
Yeah. Yeah.
But this might be obvious to everyone, but I'll say it anyway. I learned it at a workshop. Do not use a free version. If you're doing stuff for your business on AI, do not use a free version. Pay for it. Because all that information is everyone else's if you're putting it on the free one.
Wow. Okay. Pro tip. Marty Nocchi. All right. Well, I want you to take some of this into action, and I want you to be attentive this week. And instead of taking your entire library of farmable ideas and popping them into GPT, I want you to pause for a moment and do some real thinking. And instead of prompting from the lens of like a solution or an answer, I want you to prompt from the lens of a process of having someone next to you talk to it as if you're discussing with someone that is highly educated about an idea. And if you go into voice prompt or you have a different segment of experience with an AI, please send us a message. Tell us how this helped you. Tell us how it made a difference in the way you're using it.
And it could also ask you questions. You can ask it to ask you questions, which I often find helpful, or reflection questions.
The idea of a prompt and then feedback and then feedback and then feedback and then, hey, what are some questions that I need to be asking has been very valuable for me as well.
Yeah, like really good questions.
Yeah, make it a thought partner, not an employee. You'll be wildly more successful. If you need help with getting through this strategy part, if you don't know what to be asking, if you don't know how to build the vision of your own world, if you don't know what you're aiming for and you're outsourcing all that, you're probably in for a world of reconfiguration at some point. I'd invite you to share your feedback on this podcast with me online. Follow me on Instagram at Aaron Velke. Send me a note. Did this resonate with you? Are you scared about AI? Are you worried about your cognitive deloading? Are you using it daily and feeling yourself like slowing down and not thinking as well? Like, tell me your experience. I want to hear it. This conversation of AI is certainly not done. This set of data, though, does give us a little bit of insight as to how to use it differently. And I want you to use it differently, just like Marty and I are starting to use it differently. Thank you for tuning in. I hope you're living into your vision and you make some great choices today about how to be extraordinary. Marty, thank you for being here tonight. I appreciate you. Man, AI is woo, what a topic.
I learned a lot just in the past couple months.
Bro, you're an AI pro.
Yeah, I've learned a lot.
Nobody would know, but you're an AI pro. Thanks for being here. Like, subscribe, and follow us if you like this episode. And stay tuned. We're doing some big shit, and we want you to be involved in it. Okay. Good night.